Hello, and welcome back to the second presentation on group development. We are T&T, Training and Transformation, training consultants from Brandman University. In the first presentation on group development, we addressed why people get into groups and how the relational and communicative aspects of group development are so important to groups. In this second presentation, we're going to cover the roles we take on in groups and Tuckman's model of group development. Let's begin our discussion by talking about the group roles that some people take on. In the book Effective Group Discussion Theory and Practice, the authors Galanis and Adams extensively discuss how roles can emerge and the distinction between formal and informal roles. But in this presentation, we will focus on three categories of roles that most group members will take on in a group or team. They are task roles, maintenance roles, or individual roles. Now keep in mind that not everybody on a team is going to assume one of these roles, but knowing they exist can help your organization to recognize them and either highlight them as positive or deal with them if they're causing tertiary tension in your team. The first type of role that we're going to talk about are task roles. These are the roles that people take on to get the work done. They include initiating everyone to the task at hand, or orientating the other group members to the organization or the actual task. They may be focused on giving or receiving information, but all of these roles are focused and dedicated on getting the work done. And this is really where you want your members to be functioning at. The second type of roles that some people fulfill in groups or teams would be called maintenance roles. These are relational. People who take on maintenance roles care more about the people than the task. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing because it's about group harmony. Group or team members will focus on norms so that the team can function harmoniously. Think about groups that you've participated in. Was there someone who was on the group or team who seemed very in tune to when someone was having a birthday or a special occasion? They might have been the person that went out and bought a cake or bought a card and had everyone sign it. They play a very important role, and their role cannot be discounted. Those are the people who are more concerned with the people within the group rather than the task. But their sheer presence and the way that they help maintain the group harmony actually helps the team to function at a high level because the individuals feel valued. The next type of roles are not positive. These are very negative, individual roles. Sometimes when people belong to a group or a team, they might have periods of time when they withdraw from the group. They don't want to participate in some of the events. They may even block other members from fulfilling what they need to take care of. This can cause some serious issues. They're very self-centered. These people might think more about receiving recognition for themselves rather than focusing on what's good for the entire group or the organization. Those are some of the roles that group members may take on during group development, and it's important to recognize those as leaders so that we address them as necessary in order to make our team function well. But now we're going to go ahead and focus on Tuckman's model of group development. So Tuckman's model, the focus is on process. Bruce Tuckman first introduced his model in 1965, and the process was first proposed with 4 steps that eventually became 5. So here's a simple version of the actual model: forming, storming, norming, and performing. Over the years, the Tuckman's model of group development has been criticized for several reasons. So let's actually address the criticism first before we go into the actual model. So some of the criticisms regarding the Tuckman's model, the first criticism that actually is the overarching criticism is that group development is not linear. Many critics have raised the idea that the model should possibly be cyclical in format. They argue that storming, norming, performing could actually run in a circle with teams going from one to another, which leads us to the second most common criticism, is that the stages can reoccur. So just because you get through storming doesn't mean that you wouldn't return to it. And so that's a possibility, and certainly something that has been addressed regarding this particular model. Another criticism about the model is what happens next. Do groups reach performing level and then remain there? What if a group disbands? The model doesn't account for an ending, and Bruce Tuckman actually revisited his model in 1977 in order to add the fifth step, which is adjourning. Another criticism is that the model is not applicable to all teams. Some researchers have argued that it doesn't take into account certain types of teams or groups, specifically support groups. But a model doesn't have to address every single type of group development. All of these criticisms are valid, but even with all of these criticisms, the Tuckman model has stood the test of time. It's still the most commonly cited model in group development. Tuckman was quoted as saying that the names of the stages, forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning, should be credited with the popularity of the model. But he's probably just being modest. The titles are catchy, but the truth remains that this is an excellent model of group development. So let's go ahead and jump into the actual model. And we'll start with the first step, which is forming. And in the step forming, what we're looking at here is the team members are realizing what the task is. They're establishing relationships and boundaries about the task and about each other. They move from this into storming. And in storming, what we find is we have a group of people that came together for a particular task. In the forming stage, but now that they get to the storming stage, even though they all agree the task needs to happen, they may not have the same perception on how to accomplish the task. So we have all of these varying opinions, and so conflicts can arise. The book, Five Dysfunctions of a Team, Patrick Lencioni states that the absence of trust, fear of conflict, lack of commitment, avoiding accountability, and inattention to results are common dysfunctions that can derail a team. Lencioni actually even states that they're all like links in a chain. If one of them is weak, the whole system can come apart. So it's really important that we address conflict during the storming stages in order to help our groups develop. The next stage is norming. And in the norming phase, cohesion begins to occur. In the book Building Teams, Building People, the authors state that norms are the glue of an organization. When norms are well established and widely known, they can actually create energy. Now, traditionally, we know that rules were written down and norms were unspoken. For example, in a college classroom, students don't have assigned seating, but they quite often will sit in the same seats. How the class functions, where people sit, how they interact are all norms. We haven't always pointed them out, but with our global economy and intergenerational groups, the dynamics, diversity that has occurred in our groups today and our teams has been a driving force in writing down norms to make sure that everyone understands the expectations for all group members. Our next stage is performing, which is when the group or team becomes fully functional and productive. In the book, The Skilled Facilitator, the authors highlight a group effectiveness model that was adapted from a researcher named Tuckman in 1987. This model has a section entitled Group Process that truly exemplifies the performing stage. It includes problem solving, decision making, conflict management, boundary management, and communication. When members can address these areas in respectful ways while still attending to the task at hand, they're truly in the performing stage. The last stage was added in 1977, and it's entitled Adjourning. And as you can see at the bottom here, the model now has that fifth component. Bruce Tuckman recognized that some groups finish their task and that members may leave. When this happens, the group or team no longer exists in the same true format that they were formed in. Therefore, leaders need to recognize this as an adjournment, allowing them to form a new group with new norms. Tuckman's model is one of the most cited models on group development, but there are ways to enhance the model. In our two presentations, we address some of the other aspects that should be addressed, such as why individuals get into teams in the first place, and the importance of relationships and communicative aspects. But there are some other areas that could be added to Tuckman's model, such as addressing motivation as to why people are more motivated than others. And connecting to that might be the added dimension of rewards, whether that's intrinsic or extrinsic rewards. But probably the most important is how leadership can alter group development. We want to thank you for taking the time to review group development. Please click on our other pages to learn more about training and transformation.